Hello, my friends. I'm Ginger Jesus, and this is Nerd Foo. So, in my attempt to demystify Tai Chi, because I do not believe it is a mystical art, I believe it is a very terrestrial art that has been described mystically so often that people have a hard time separating the two. And this is becoming a problem for me specifically, and I'm just going to admit right away, I got a bit of a chip on my shoulder. Hey, I'm human. We're all mortals just trying to make it work. But my big problem I've discovered is that I'm having external martial artists, real martial artists. Oftentimes I've discovered that they believe that I'm trying to trick them into learning mysticism using words that aren't mystic. Almost like a metaphysics word salad. I'm going to throw out words that physicists use, but in a way that makes no sense to anybody except me and you if I can convince you that I make sense. I'm not trying to do that. I'm actually trying to say, physiologically, this does this. But I'm having a hard time getting people to listen and open their ears long enough to even get that basic concept from me. So, now that wouldn't be so bad. I mean, that it sucks and it hurts not being listened to. But I tend to get most of my flack from other Tai Chi people who now try to think that I'm only trying to learn half the art, or even less than that, or I'm trying to pollute the art, or I'm trying to steal the art, or something like that. When in reality, the opposite is completely true. I love this art, and I want it to flourish, and I want it to be, something that can be discussed intelligently, which can't happen if people are offended by people discussing this art intelligently. So, I kind of want us to look at that. Inside the art, especially, and outside the art, I mean, I can't be too upset. Of all the martial artists, of all the martial arts schools out there, we have the most con artists. Down, forward, punch button, Hadouken. All right. Now that I'm done with that stupid little rant, I want to get back to nuts and bolts here and some tacks. And I want to talk about what is probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of Tai Chi. The Wuji stance. Those of you unfamiliar with the Wuji stance, it is essentially a high horse stance where your body stands still. Well, you stand still in the high horse stance. That's a fairly... Scratch that, ignore it, pretend I deleted it. I do not edit these videos. Do me a favor, pretend. It's essentially a high horse stance. Now, mystically speaking, it's described as the beginning of Tai Chi, the center of yin and yang. Now, if you see the terms yin and yang as a mystical term, then there's no way to see the word Wuji without thinking about it as a mystical term. I happen to think about the terms yin and yang as a cultural shorthand for opposites, giving them inherent values that, generally speaking, are mostly human attached. So yang and yin in the case of a flowing river, the yang portion is the part that is higher than the part that is lower, which is yin. The part that flows faster is yang than the part that flows slower. The part of the river that is louder is more yang than the part of the river that is yin, which is essentially giving opposites based on what we believe to be inherent value, which is why yang is considered male and yin is considered female, because we have taken inherent values and associated with things that aren't necessarily associated to the thing we're comparing to. Because water on a river from the high point to low point doesn't have a gender. Yeah, it's a river. But it works if you live in that culture. But I don't live in that culture. I live in my culture, We describe things differently. We use our words differently. It's just obvious, and for some reason, I always feel like I have to keep repeating this statement. Different cultures use words differently. And if we want people to understand us in our culture, we have to figure out the words to use in our culture for them to understand us. I don't know why this is so... whatever. Wuji stance. The beginning of Tai Chi. It's the stance you're in at the beginning of the form. Before you do commencement, you're supposed to be in the Wuji stance. Wuji is the beginning of Tai Chi. Done. Wuji is the center of yin and yang. Yin and yang means, in this case, right, left, forward, backwards, up, down, your balance points. So Wuji is the center of your balance points. So, at the beginning of Tai Chi, you are trying to stand in the most center of your balance points. When you do the stance of the Wuji stance, what you are trying to do is drop your chi. Or in this case, you are trying to drop your center of balance using breathing exercises designed to take your psoas major and other deep internal abdominal muscles to massage the anterior of your spine, to get the anterior erectors to the point where you can manipulate your spine, your lower spine, backwards and forward a little bit, which allows you to drop your balance. It takes hard work. It takes a long time. And it takes intense dedication and practice, which is the same whether or not you're doing it mystically or you're doing it in a less mystical fashion. But the results are the same. We're doing the same breathing exercises. We're working the same muscles. We're massaging the same spine. And we're getting the exact same effects. Whether you're doing it your way or we're doing it my way, we're getting the exact same effects, which means either both ways work or both explanations get you to the same place. Because culturally, things are described differently. So the Wuji stance is essentially a high horse stance. It is designed to help us learn how to use our quads to carry the weight of our body. In its more advanced stages, it is designed to teach us how to use the muscles of the perineum to create that circular attack that you find in almost all wrestling forms. In judo, they talk about, even in Tai Chi, they talk about the hips being the ultimate commander. Well, when you do the stance, what you're doing is you're taking the circular force and moving it away from where your quads meet your hips, and you're bringing it in closer to the perineum, allowing for not as much power, in fact, a bit less power, but a more centralized internal pivot point. Or you're centering your chi, right? And then, what's the other thing I wanted to bring up? Because I don't plan these videos either. These are all just me sitting in my car with a bug up my ass. Right, fascia. Because ultimately this is a martial art practice built on building your fascia and your tendons, creating thicker, stringier, depending on what you need your tendon to do, the stance is designed to kind of get your tendons there and increase your fascial strength, which takes time, which takes 20, 30-minute stances before you can start even getting the benefits of the exercise. So the other big problem I'm seeing with Wuji stance is people are only holding it for 3 to 4 minutes, like at best. I don't know what they're doing at home, but in class, I've never seen it go longer than 5, ever. So even amongst Tai Chi people, I don't think the Wuji stance is respected as much as it needs to be. And I think as Tai Chi people, we need to start really looking into why these things do what they do, so we know what we need to be practicing more and what we should be practicing less. I'm Ginger Jesus. This is Nerd Foo. Be good to yourselves out there.